Good morning, everybody on YouTube. This is Rick Thomas from Obsolete Video Services. Okay, guys, it's December 31st. Getting ready to ring in the new year in a few hours, or several hours from now. It's early morning right now. Actually, today I want to wish everybody a happy 2024. And today I'm in my garage. This is early this morning. I want to oversee some of the work I've been doing for some customers. As you can see, it's nice and sunny, butt ass cold, but it is definitely going to be a nice day to warm up in the next hour or two. But it is sunny and it looks like it's going to be a nice day. But man, we're having some very cold mornings, big time. Anyways, I've been working on this job for a customer, and I know he's a subscriber, and I always like to keep him with updates. Really nice guy, and doing some M2. This is an M2 Panasonic AU65 recorder. Okay, guys, lots of problems. And we are making tons and tons of headway on this thing. But anyways, I got this in for repair. It was dead as a doornail, would not power up. I did some preliminary repair on it, but I couldn't do much because the power supply in this thing was dead as a doornail. And this is where the power supply is located. It's a big box that comes out. And big problem with these Panasonic machines is they used, when these machines are kept in very poor storage or whatever, I come across this a couple times now where I had one of these Panasonic M2 decks sent to me about a couple years ago that had the same problem. The capacitors on these things and components of the power supply are very poor. I mean, we're talking junk, okay? I mean, it's just cheap junk that they used, and they're made by TDK. TDK would make the power supplies for this when they were manufacturing this for Panasonic. Panasonic would give them the design, and then TDK would make the power supply. But they would use cheap components because TDK wanted to make it as cheap as possible. Well, the problem with these power supplies by TDK is the capacitors and components always fail on these power supplies, and they start leaking like a sieve. I mean, leaking. I mean, this particular power supply I had to rebuild. I mean, seriously had to rebuild big time. It took me like 3 days. I mean, but every component was leaky, gooey. I mean, the electrolytic was all over the place. All the capacitors were dead as a doornail. I had a couple bridge rectifiers I had to change out on this thing. I mean, and even some diodes. It did short out. This was a very big problem with the M2 is the power supplies would short out, or you'll start getting power failures on the front panel, low voltages, and the deck will just stop, or it won't load, or it will just shut off completely. Very, very big disaster with these M2s is the power supplies. But I got a whole slew of components in when I had to order all this stuff. They take giant capacitors. As you can see, very giant. These are not easy to take out of those because they have double-sided soldering points on those power supplies. And it's very tedious to get the components out of these power supplies when you're working on these M2s. It took me about 3 days to actually rebuild this power supply. But anyways, this is the M2 I'm working on, and we're getting there. So today is where we're at on this M2. This is M2, the high-quality recorder player. As you can see, the voltages are back. We have no low voltages. It's in the 0 position. You'd see errors on the front, or it would be a big error code would be coming up right now. It is on. The unit is on. As you can see, the meters are all working. So anyways, we got it to this point. It now powers up, which it didn't do. So, and it also loads. All right, let's get this thing in the load position. All right, it is now loading. So the voltages are back for the loading position. All right, so here we go. All right, so until we get some actual playback, which we will in a minute. All right, here we got time code. The low RF this is a bad tape, so this is a common thing with this tape, guys. But anyways, you can see the audio meters for the color bars and tone is there. All right. So anyways, we even got the ready and standby lights coming up. The lights are coming back up on the panels in both positions. All these lights, everything is coming up on this now. So fast forward is working now. And goes back into the play position with time code. That's good. Stop. Fast forward. So the functionality of all the positions for the power supply are working, which is a very good sign. So we're now getting power to the actual unit, and the functions are now actually working. There we go, and the shuttle's working. That's very good. Very, very good. And so we are actually getting time code. This is beautiful. This is where it should be. The loading on this thing is now working right. That's good. Just double checking my work because I wasn't able to test it, but now we're able to test that part of it. I had to rebuild the entire mechanism like I did on the other one, so that's where we're at on this so far. So it ejects nice. It does play. Goes into play position. These are the biggest pain in the ass decks to work on, guys. The failure on these is just enormous due to the design and the cheap components that they used at the time. So we're not getting any problems right now. Servo's not locked. There's no video on the tape, so that's a common thing on this particular tape anyways. Anyways, it is working. So we're going back into rewind. Let's see what we get. All right, it's rewinding. As you can see, the meters are jumping around. So we know that the got audio. We got color bar tone. That's working properly. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. So we're going to see what we get there. So we do got full power to the deck now. It's not going into error rate because of the bad power supply issues, which is now completely restored and up and running. So we got the power supply. We got all the lights are coming up on the actual meter. And as you can see, we now have audio. The audio meters are working. So all the lights on the panels are coming up now. We got time code. Good, 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 good. These lights are even turning on. Everything is turning on where it should in the positions that it is. So that's a very good sign. All right, now let's get to the biggest problem about this M2. Biggest problem is these things were the biggest pieces of crap for the small tape loads. Okay, this is a large tape, all right, which I also fixed this problem, which was a real disaster, but we got it. All right, so here we go. This is considered a large shell M2. Okay, now this is a small shell, and these you would always have jams. I mean, the loading for the M2 small shells were disastrous. These decks just did not like these tapes. You would have tons of problems with them. And I don't think over the years I've ever known a machine that actually did work with these small shells. But we did get some small shells from the customer for a test. So let's see what we get. All right. As you know, I fixed all the loading mechanisms on these things. So what do we have here? All right. And there we go. So now we have large shell and we have small shell. They both do load. So that's very, 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 very good. So as you can see, loads large and small shell, which is very, very good. Like I said, the mechanism has to be completely rebuilt, guys. That's the problem with these decks. If the mechanism isn't rebuilt, and everything else, besides power supply and everything else that was wrong with these damn decks, you know, you're not going to even be able to get it to this point. But as you can see, we got small tape and large tape. They both do load. All right, so let's get the small one out. So if you're in a studio and you're switching tapes, this machine will work. All right, you can never really get it to this point because this deck hated these small tapes. It really did. And then when you go back to your large shell, you know, you would start getting jams all over again. I mean, it just wouldn't take either one of them. As you can see, it takes both tapes. No problem at all. Boom. So now we have large shell and small shell capability, which it did not have before. So, yeah, the mechanism on this one was a real disaster. But anyways, we got it to this point. We're actually getting it to load and engage. It's coming up. We're getting full power. We have no more error code rates coming with the power supply. The power supply was completely rebuilt with high-grade capacitors and components, which I had to order. And I use nothing but Panasonic Gold Series capacitors, guys. These are truly the best capacitors you can buy. The Gold Series capacitors are really the best ones to go with because These things, if you ever cut one of these open, these are wrapped and packed very tight with electrolytic. They're very, very good, sealed with rubber boots on the bottom. These are very high quality capacitors, and it takes a ton of these to rebuild a power supply on an M2. There's a lot of capacitors on this power supply that have to be taken out. They are double soldered, upper and lower component soldering, which is a real pain in the ass, and you gotta know how to do that to get rid of them, or take them out, or remove the old ones, and then you put the new ones in. But we rebuilt the power supply. We're up to, as Scotty would say on the Enterprise, we're up to full power, folks, and this is not easy to do on this machine. The M2 is a real disaster of a machine, and this pretty much has to be done on every one of these you get. If unless you get lucky and you get one that was stored properly, but these things are always stored, in bad areas or bad storage, and if they're in bad climates, you're going to have nothing but leaky capacitors and anything else. All right, so we're going to be doing some preliminary testing and see where we're at, and we're going to try to see what kind of video playback and if we can get this now going into record position, because now the cards are getting their full 24 volt, I believe, voltage, which is what they need to run full capacity, which they were not getting, obviously because of a bad power supply. So we're making progress on this thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this update on the Panasonic M2 AU6 recorder, and we'll be making some more videos as we go along. Hope you enjoyed this video.